In the DMZ America podcast has returned as promised, and just making your day a little brighter. I'm Scott
A
Stantis.
lot brighter. A lot brighter.
The brightest, damn it, the brightest.
Like a shining, like a hot sun.
Like our Democratic friends talking about Joe Biden. This is the brightest, the searing
best
heat that is the DMZ America podcast. I'm Scott Stantis coming to you from the right.
And I'm Ted Rall coming to you from sort of the left, if there is such a thing anymore.
Well, you're the left, Ted. I think you're what's left. Ted Rall actually talked about running for president. You mentioned this in 2016, and I tried to say, yes, you should definitely go up to New Hampshire. I think it's at the time, I think it was about 250, maybe $400 filing fee. I mean, so there was a filing fee, but that you could have given your following. So I think you probably could have done and had a lot of fun.
Actually, this would be a better year to do it, because now with Biden out of the way, right? Biden has taken himself out of the New Hampshire primary. So,
is that true? Okay.
Well, think about it, because on the Democratic side, the first primary this year is South Carolina,
which is bizarre. That is so strange. I'm trying to help me understand this. By the way, that's Ted Rall coming to us from the left, and we're both editorial cartoonists, in case you didn't already know that. What? Can you explain that logic to me? I really, really don't understand.
Yeah, sure. I'll tell you what happened. So you will recall that in the 2020 cycle, there was a terrible danger of Bernie Sanders becoming the nominee for the Democratic Party. Bernie tied with Buttigieg in the Iowa caucus. Bernie won overwhelmingly, not surprisingly, considering that he's from next door in Vermont. He won in New Hampshire, although Vermont and New Hampshire are very different states. They're shaped similarly. And anyway, so the DN, so that was around the period where all the mainstream Democratic-leaning media said, we're screaming, and Bernie must be stopped, as if he was like Stalin as if he was, Hitler on his way to Moscow. And and then finally James Clyburn, who was the party boss of South Carolina, basically got arranged for the party machine to make sure that Black voters in particular supported, I want to say Hillary, but basically Hillary, Biden. And then further, right before Super Tuesday, the night before Super Tuesday, arranged for a mass co-endorsement by such luminaries as Beto O'Rourke, Amy Klobuchar, and Pete Buttigieg. Were all flown, I believe, to Texas and gave a joint endorsement. And then anyway, the point is that South Carolina is where Biden began to cinch the Democratic nomination.
So this is a payoff.
So it's a payoff. It's also a way to basically
that's on brand in that family.
Yeah, totally. There's major danger that, like in Iowa and New Hampshire, where there's a strong progressive strain in the Democratic Party, particularly in the Iowa caucus, that someone like RFK Jr. could do really well, especially RFK with the Massachusetts and New Hampshire are intimately linked culturally. That there's a feeling that Biden might not do very well, and he holds a grudge for not having done well in Iowa and New Hampshire. So therefore, he's like, well, we'll just cut those off. Now, New Hampshire has a state law that I don't know exactly how this works, but the state law is that we are always the first primary in the nation, and no matter what. So,
so they can move it forward. Let's say they decide.
Yeah, they could move it forward like 6 years earlier or something. So I don't really know. So it's kind of like whatever you guys do first, we'll do firster or something.
And so you can do, we can do firster.
So South Carolina is so Biden and the DNC have changed the first official primary to South Carolina. Iowa caucus and New Hampshire are like, fuck you. We're going to keep doing our thing. We're going to keep on doing what we're doing. So anyway, that's like the deal. And so there's going to be Iowa and New Hampshire will be Bidenless. Biden may not even be on the ballot, probably. He certainly won't campaign in those states, because that would go against the South Carolina idea. So it's going to be super interesting. It seems like a really unforced error and a really boneheaded move on the part of the DNC. Shocking, never seen one of those before. And And so even from their own point of view, what's going to happen is the optics are going to be even worse because Biden's going to get killed in Iowa and New Hampshire, and they're still first. And it'll be like, well, and so, yeah, those, by the way, those delegates won't work, won't count. The Iowa and New Hampshire delegates have, the Democrats have been disenfranchised. So they don't get to send anyone to the Democratic National Convention in 2024. So that's what's going on. So, yeah.
Wow. That's democracy in action right there. Playing into what we talked about the first segment. So this is DMZ America, the musical, apparently. We just keep breaking into song.
Hey, apparently this is your fault. You started this.
You send Ted to Canada, he just becomes a musical
a singing fool.
And the other part about the optics, Ted, is to have it in South Carolina. Now, the idea would be that somehow this would get South Carolinians excited about the Democratic Party. Folks, if you've ever driven across South Carolina, if you know anything about it, and my
better
family
drive slowly. They have major draconian speeding tickets there.
Oh yeah, they have the typical sheriff behind the billboard thing. That trope, just waiting for you to zip by. And but my family and I, I don't know if you remember, we used to, like, the week between Christmas and New Year, we'd go every year. Some friends had a cabin there on Edisto Island, which is just magical. It's a beautiful place. But on the drive, we drove across much of South Carolina, and you see many, many, many Confederate flags, and many Trump flags. I mean, there's no way that is ever going to be in anyone's lifetime again a Democratic state. It used to be when they were yellow dog Democrats, and that was what they were. That's never going to happen. So the other thing is, but what it tells you, Scott, is something really interesting. It tells you tells you is that the Democratic Party is no longer a liberal party. No. Well, it's, again, look at who they're defending. I mean, if we can jump into this real quick, Ted, I know you have a ferry to catch, but the story, I sent you some story in the last 48 hours about the Biden investigation, the Biden story, the Hunter Biden story, and all Democrats now are rolling their eyes, going, "Why can't you just let that be?" Which reminds me of many cartoonists, conservative cartoonists in the early 70s saying, "Why can't you just let that Watergate thing be? It's nothing. It has nothing to do with the president. At the very worst, it's overzealous guys, working, who really love President Nixon." This arc of this feels much more serious. And I'm going to kick myself for saying this, Ted, because I think it's true. And I know you're going to agree with me. The charges against, and the potential charges against President Joe Biden vis-a-vis his actions of his son and his, going along with them and profiting from them, are far worse than the what's soon to be 4 indictments against former President Trump.
Agreed.
Trump's, the first 3 are
except I guess you could say the January 6th charges are pretty.
Which ones? We talk about the ones down there.
So let's go in order. I'm going to say classified documents. Okay, the irony is he faces 400 years in prison for those, but you and I both know that's bullshit, and he should never have been charged for it. Prosecutorial discretion is like, look, he fucked up. He's an asshole. He shouldn't have taken those documents home. But they're documents. They're documents. You don't send the former president of the United States or the front runner for the Republican nomination to prison over paperwork. Okay, that's just a political thing.
I know you've used that, but I disagree with you. I can jump real quick and just say that it's important. It could be potentially important.
But it's not as important as what Biden
None of this is important. None of this. Okay, go on. But go on.
Then the Alvin Bragg Manhattan DA charges, those are just horse shit. That's like
bullshit. Yeah.
Those are business, like, fudging. He's a real estate developer. He's a sleazebag. Of course he fudged his business records, but who fucking cares? And, like, that's ridiculous. It's not important. It's not a big deal. The Georgia thing we haven't seen, so maybe we shouldn't talk about. But the January 6th charges are at least they get to something existential, which is the attempt to overturn the results of a fair election, to the extent that the election was fair in the first place, considering what Biden did to Bernie Sanders. I think but I don't think legally that case has there's anything I think Trump will walk from those. I mean, they can't prove that case because
Right.
they have to prove that he thought that he had lost, and he didn't. So,
well, you actually ran a cartoon. You sent a cartoon out this morning that says, "When did the president think it? What did the president think, and when did he think it?"
yeah.
It's like,
who knows?
You have to prove that. Well, and there may be some smoking guns. The
You
guy
just need
can't
one
keep his
juror.
yap.
You need one juror to be like, "I'm not sure," and then he walks.
I think you need something to prove that he did it. You have to have a text, something, a DM.
There's hearsay. There's like one person or two people who say like he kind of knew he'd lost. Like hearsay is not gonna. You can't convict on hearsay. So
and the Georgia thing is kind of the same thing. You're gonna, but there it's much more glaring in that he did call Georgian elected officials, state, the Secretary of State, the governor, and said, "Find me these votes." I mean, and that obviously he's trying to perpetrate a fraud there. So I think the Georgia case,
but these are all
something.
None of these involve anything close to what Joe Biden probably did, though.
Yeah, the Biden family. I'm sorry, and if you're rolling your eyes, fuck you. There is now fire here in my view. And Ted can tell you I am gallingly slow to go there on these types of things.
True.
Let's wait and see what's going on.
You are very conservative that way.
Yes, and this, but I'm sorry, as the facts come out more and more, now we have pictures of Biden hanging out with these guys, having dinner with.
Yeah, remember he didn't know he supposedly didn't have anything to do with or even know anything about Hunter Biden's business activities at all.
Well, to be fair,
we know he attended the meetings, at least 24 of them, and phone calls, and was there and an active participant. So that's clearly not true. Scott, Jonathan Turley had a fascinating piece today. It's syndicated, but I read it in the New York Post, and people are going to roll their eyes and say New York Post. But Jonathan Turley is a right-leaning lawyer. He also happens to be really smart and often right about things. And he said something fascinating. And it's like when someone else thinks of something and you're like, fuck, I should have thought of that. And it's like, so he said, look, the thing is, even if you stipulate that these were all Hunter Biden got all the money, and that Joe never got any of it, although there's plenty of evidence that Joe and Jill got at least $5 million from China and or Ukraine and or Kazakhstan, and or Romania. Don't forget the Romanians, because everybody's got a piece, all these like Eastern Bloc places. So anyway, even if you stipulate that like Joe never got a cent, it's still all to his benefit. And here's why. Joe Biden is 80 years old. He is a rich guy. He's worth nearly $100 million. And what is your biggest concern when you are an old, rich dude? What is the one thing on the top of your list is making sure that your kids have as much of your money as possible.
Oh, I thought I was finding that trophy wife, but go on.
Oh, well, that too. As frictionless. You want your kids to inherit, you want to leave, when you die, when you draw your last breath, you want to know that your kids are taken care of, that they have as much money as possible, and that they've gotten it in a frictionless way where they didn't have to pay a lot of taxes, they didn't have to go through a lot of hassle. That's why people pay thousands of dollars to lawyers to establish trusts and try to avoid probate and all that. And Turley points out that even if you assume that Joe's has simply allowed his reputation to be sold and didn't deliver any deliverables to the Ukrainians, except for, fighting a war for the Ukrainians, then even if you assume all that and that somehow the Ukraine war is completely not related to Burisma or all that, which is frankly, I don't know how stupid or naive you'd have to be, then that's still rises to the level of benefiting Joe Biden. And it's true. Like if I had the ability to put millions of dollars into my son's pocket, and I knew that as I got older, he would be taken care of after I'm gone, even if I don't need to get the money because I'm old, rich, I have plenty of money. I want, if I'm Joe Biden, I want Hunter to have as much money as possible.
Sweet cartooning money.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry.
Yeah, no. So with the podcasting money. So the point is, like, it's crazy. Like, so yes, it does benefit. It benefits a parent to when you benefit their kid. And that just makes sense. If you have a kid and someone gives something to your kid, and by the way, including $140,000 sports car, apparently was one of the gifties
Yes, I
that was
love
given
Porsches.
to Hunter.
No
Yeah,
one's
it's a
ever
very
given me.
Oh, but by the way, he was given a different kind of sports car, but he didn't care for that one. It didn't suit him, so he traded it in for the Porsche. But this was
you heard about the Biden grandchild? I'm sorry, real quick, and this really pissed me off, and I can't remember which one it was. It was one of the girls, and she was offered one of these no-show jobs. Hunter found it for her that paid 120, I think. She says, "I can't work for that." She's like 18. It's just like 19. I can't work for that.
Work.
Yeah. It's just like, I can't have a job that pays that little. My friends will laugh me off the dance floor or whatever they care about in Delaware.
The Instagram.
The
TikTok.
Entitlement. You may be right, Ted. You may be absolutely right that he didn't profit. Although
I don't know. I'm not saying no. I think he did.
Oh yeah, me too.
At least $5 million from the Ukrainians into 2017.
At least, and if it was $5 million,
because there's $5.3 million that turned up in Joe and Jill's personal bank account in like this whole weird lattice of like, shell companies and everything. It's like, okay, who has all those shell companies who's not a real estate developer? A real estate developer is like that's how they operate. But Hunter Biden wasn't in that kind of business. There's no reason. The only reason you have to have that interlacing web of corporations within corporations within corporations is when you're trying to hide money, which by the way doesn't work. Everything is digital. It's super easy. Right. I mean, it's very like 1962, but they think they're in Mad Men or something. But
did you see the photographs that Hunter took of himself driving 170 and also smoking crack while he's driving a sports car?
By the way, he should be in prison just for that.
Oh,
I'm not even kidding.
Oh God. Well, we have a friend whose wife is in prison for driving intoxicated and crashing.
And there are people who are in prison. What do you call them? Oh, we call them black people who are in prison for
I've heard of
taking
them.
videos of themselves doing stupid shit and then posting them online. And then only on that evidence alone, right? Like driving like assholes or whatever, they're sent to prison.
I'll have to research that black people thing more. Anyway, because I live here in Alabama where we have fights with them on piers, apparently.
Yeah.
What's really cool about that story? I mean, just if I may jump in real quick and then we're going to say goodbye, is that there really may not be a racial component to this.
Yeah.
The guy who was telling me, listen, you can't park your fucking boat here. And the drunken redneck said, "Yeah, we can. Trump says we can park it anywhere we wants to. We don't. Laws."
This was about drunkenness versus sobriety.
Yeah, and so
drunkenness wins usually.
It tends to. Anyway, Ted, where can we see all things besides there in the great state?
Oh,
great state. I just said the great state of Canada. That was wishful thinking.
Soon, I want to chime in one last thing. There was also this incident on the New York City subway, I guess, like a day or two ago, where three or four black girls attacked an Asian family who were visiting New York City. And again, what was interesting was it was investigated as a racial bias incident, but the Asian family said they didn't really think it was it's a hate crime. They thought they were just being rambunctious assholes. In other words, not all rambunctious, hateful assholery is necessarily racist. So that it was those two stories kind of went to this
country has come so far.
Let the healing begin.
Ted, you got to catch a ferry. Where can we see your stuff?
Yes. Go to Rall.com, RALL.com. Listen to my show on Sputnik Radio, on Radio Sputnik, which is The Final Countdown, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Monday through Friday, or on Rumble. Go to whowhatwhy.org on Saturdays. And probably there's something else, but I'm forgetting it. So whatever. What about you, Scott? Where can people find all things Stantisian?
gocomics.com/Scott Stantis, one word, or gocomics.com/Prickly City. See my comic strip. Go to chicagotribune.com and go to the opinion section. See a gallery of my work there. But you can also hear Ted and I on Center Clip, which are like mini podcasts, and it's really great. Go to centerclip.com. Check it out. I've really been enjoying it. It's growing like crazy. And so there you go. If you have the Center Clip app on your phone now, you will be able to impress all the ladies at the bars with the fact that you were
especially
an early
if
adopter.
you're lesbian. Then you can really get the ladies at the bar.
There it is. On that note, thank you for listening to this edition of the DMZ America podcast. Ted, safe travels. Please watch out for moose
and bears. No, apparently watching out for moose is a real thing. They stand in the road. And
have you seen how big
it's like hitting? Never. I'm hoping to, but apparently it's like hitting a brick wall. Like you're done. Basically, it's like the car. I was told yesterday that it's like the car is like going underneath it.
Oh, real quick, they had this adorable video of a baby moose playing with a swing set in someone's backyard in Alaska, right? And you're looking at it going, that is so cute. And all of a sudden you see mama moose come and is like, her head is looming over the swing set. Just telling you by size, these things are massive. Don't hit one, Ted, please.
I'll try to avoid it. Okay.
I'll beg you. Okay. So for us here at the DMZ America podcast, thanks for listening. Until next time. We love you. Bye.
Bye-bye.